Thank you for logging on to the PawCast for the week of Monday, November 19th through Friday, the 23rd, even though we're here for the 19th and 20th. Hi, I'm Mr. Andrews.
And I'm Miss Pegram.
And here's what's happening on our team the next 2 days.
All right, guys. So everyone knows that we have the short week next week, but we really are actually going to be able to get into some good stuff with social studies. We're definitely going to talk about the first Thanksgiving and kind of compare how that looks today, to what happened back then. We're also going to talk about Thanksgiving here in America, but then, what does that look like around the world? So we'll get to see some really fun stuff and do some activities with Thanksgiving in that nature. As far as our ecosystem book is going, we have finished all of our research questions, which is incredible to me. It's mind-blowing. I feel like we just started the unit, but they've really been working hard to get that research in, and we are coming to an end with the research. Now is the second step in creating our book and putting all that stuff together, figuring out how, the mind of an author works, the mind of an illustrator, how that works, and just putting that book together, figuring out what goes where, what sounds good, what looks good, that type of thing. So they're really going to need to put their creative cap on for that part of our book. And thirdly, we are going to review some previously learned skills. There won't be a reading packet this week, just like there wasn't one last week because of having Monday off. But we will start those back up after Thanksgiving. And again, like I said, we'll be reviewing some of those previously learned skills such as inferencing, main idea, theme, key details, and how they correspond with main idea. So all that stuff, but gonna incorporate it in a fun way. So looking forward to that. Everybody, I hope everyone has a good Thanksgiving coming up, and we'll see you Monday.
During the math and science portion of our day for Monday and Tuesday, math, we're going to be actually finding the true quotient for division problems. Now, we spent Tuesday through Friday this past week working on finding an estimated quotient, and that's a life skill. That's also one, though, that students understand, or at least we tried to make the presentation, that we're trying to also find out if our answers are reasonable when we actually find the actual quotient. So this coming week, we're going to be using two-digit divisors to divide with, and this is new for our fifth graders. Now, they did single-digit division in fourth grade, two-digit divisors now, and so that's a little bit tougher nut to crack. So we spent quite a bit of time on that life skill of estimating the division answer. So that's what we're doing on Monday and Tuesday with math. In science, it's a little bit more. Not so much that we're doing on Monday and Tuesday, but more so what I want you to be aware of. We're in science fair project mode, and the science fair project is the ownership of each student. And so parents, this is not your animal to have to catch and to tame. This is your students' science fair project, and I want it to stay as close to that as possible. You can offer support. Obviously, there are going to be maybe some materials that you might have to supply or prepare for them. Other than that, please let them go through the process of this. I want to spend a couple of minutes talking with you about what we've done in your child's science journal. We spent some time talking about the scientific method about a week and a half ago, and that's recorded in your child's journal. It describes each part of that process, and then we went a little bit farther. I developed a science fair project type of situation. My topic was bubble gum. I love bubble gum. That's of interest to me, so I raised a question of which would be the better bubble blowing gum, Trident sugarless or extra sugarless gum. So in your child's journal, they helped me to solve that problem. So we gathered, we stated a problem, and I've got a slide of this so you can look at it now. They stated the problem. We collected data and information about the gum. We tried to become as as much of an expert on these two pieces of gum as we could. We could have taken that research a lot deeper, but just learning what are the properties of gum that cause it to be a bubble gum versus just a chewing gum, that would have been a good extension, but we didn't do that. We collected all that data to be able to then create a hypothesis. So we spent a lot of time discussing why data research and becoming an expert on your topic is so valuable. So I want them to spend a great amount of time on just collecting information and collecting research information. Your child's going to need to have 3 different sources of information that they tried to research for their topic. 3 sources. And that can be books, magazines, web links. They're just going to have to be able to provide their sources, 3 different ones at least, maybe more. Then they can create a hypothesis or a guess. And we spent some time talking about what would be good factual information that would help us to be able to develop a hypothesis. We talked about several real-life situations, like in a doctor's office, how a doctor uses a scientific method to make a guess as to what would be the best way to treat a situation, whatever that might be. We also talked about how the doctor is already an expert. They've done lots of research on those kinds of symptoms that are presented to her or him. The same thing with an auto mechanic. If you take your car in, we talked about how the auto mechanic is already an expert and becomes an expert if he's not or she's not, in order to diagnose, make a guess, and then try to make that repair to fix a problem. So we used as many real-world situations as we possibly could to help these students understand the scientific method is something we use as a life skill. So they're going to make a hypothesis and support themselves with that. And then we took the time to test. In our classroom, we tested by blowing bubbles. We used some warm-up time. Then for the next 5 minutes, we recorded how many bubbles we were able to blow. Now that's supplemental to making a final conclusion. So we used not only our test results, but also the data we'd already collected to help us make a final conclusion. And so we concluded using facts and information. And then probably as important as anything that we're learning is how to use our test and our conclusions to be able to make a real-life application. Students already are aware that they're going to have a real-life application in their findings. So how would this help? We decided in our classrooms that the bubble gum testing would help someone possibly that was trying to learn how to blow a bubble. They might choose one of these gums, the winner in their testing, to learn or maybe teach someone. Or if you're in a bubble gum blowing contest, you would want to probably reach for one of these. And then we even had a student who said, "What's the cost of these gums, Mr. Andrews?" And we looked at the receipt, and they decided that maybe cost could even be something. If both of the gums were virtually the same in our findings, but if one had a higher cost than the other, maybe you might want to make that as a variable. So there were all kinds of real-life applications, and all students are going to have a real-life application from their studies. Your student is bringing home a sheet like this. It's actually a packet, a project template guide, and on that guide at the very bottom there is a schedule that we've created. Now it's not prescriptive, but it does give an outline of what they probably need to be keeping over the next 3.5 to 4 weeks if they want to stay on cue for being prepared. We don't want all of these science fair projects happening 4 days or the weekend before they're due on December 12th. So look at that outline. But most importantly, what we want you to be able to do, at the top of that sheet, there is a place where students can list things that they already like, things that they have a high interest in. So after they make a list of some of those things, would you help hone that in to 2 testable questions? In other words, questions that we could, about that thing that they're very interested in, and that we could actually perform tests on and solve a problem or prove a situation. So 2 testable questions. They're going to bring that in on Monday, and I'm going to help them to make a commitment to one of those 2 testable questions. So if you can help them this weekend think this process through, things that are going to be relevant, things that are going to be practical, and things that you can help support them with, materials and things like that. Those are the things that we need your help with, Mom and Dad. So take a look at that. On Monday, I'm going to start looking at what they bring back, and we'll agree on something. Now, there is one other thing that we've worked on the past 2 days in class, and we have made a model trifold that's going to look very similar to what they're going to turn in. So I think, you know, when you leave the situation knowing what this should look like when you present it, it's a big help. We talked about how their trifold board that they're going to set up at the science fair is really like a highlight of like we talked about when you watch a sporting event, when you watch Sports Center, they don't show the whole game again. They just take the highlights and put it on for about a minute and a half. We discussed how students should have a presentation tool like a trifold, and that should just show the highlights of their science project activity. And so all of that's contained on that trifold. We talked about each aspect of it. So your student should be conditioned to be able to talk about that with you. It should have all of the aspects that we put on there, including their 3 sources and the real-life application. So I give that to you as a way of being empowered parents, but it's really on your student right now to take this and run with it. I just want you to be there in a supporting role and allow your student to take this and run with it. And I don't want this to be a parent science fair project. I just want this to be your student extending their abilities to apply what we're learning at school. So I'm hoping that this is going to be received as that we get to do this rather than a we have to do this. And so there we go. If you still have any questions or concerns, feel free to just contact me at school either by email. I prefer a phone, but just let me know and I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Capital. Oh, which one will we learn about this week?
Now, where in the United States is Mr. Andrews? Boy, we missed last week, and I totally missed that myself. So I've got one of my favorite states to visit. I have been to this state 4 out of the last 5 summers. I've just made a reason to go there. I've got some good friends that live in this particular state, and so I enjoy visiting their state and a lot of things that I'm going to put on as my clues. So here's the first one. First of all, here's me standing in front of their state capitol a couple of years ago. Not too many years ago. Matter of fact, I think it was my visit 2 years ago. In this state, they developed the first soda pop made in the United States. It was created by accident in the year 1866. It was called Verner's Ginger Ale. This state has 116 lighthouses. Mrs. Andrews is a big lighthouse person, and we didn't see all 116, but we saw quite a few of them as we traveled up and down the coastline of this state. Another clue. This state has 40 ski resorts and more than, check this out, 4,000 miles of snowmobile trails in this state. Tells you a little bit about maybe the weather that this state might have during the wintertime. In this state, we find the world's largest weather vane or wind vane. It's located in this state and it stands, it's kind of hard to look at this photo and tell, but it's 48 feet tall and it weighs more than 3,500 pounds. Just the wind arrow alone is 26 feet long. Sometimes in the lower part of this state, it's called the mitten because of its shape. So a lot of times, this is what, yeah, that way. So it's called the mitten because of its lower part looks kind of like the mitten that would fit on your hand. And now we're starting to get into some giveaway clues now. A person that lives in this state is never going to be more than 85 miles from one of the Great Lakes and only 6 miles from any kind of freshwater source. So again, on the license plate of this state, they kind of, I'm not going to give that away, but they have something about this pure water on their license plates, and that's why. Also, this state is bordered by 4 out of the 5 Great Lakes of the United States. They border on 4 of them. I think I saw a t-shirt that Mrs. Worst, who was from this state, it said, this state prefers 4 out of the 5, or I think the lakes prefer 4 out of the 5 Great Lakes prefer this state or something because this state touches 4 of them. And this state has an upper and a lower peninsula. And again, this upper and lower peninsula is connected by the world's largest suspension bridge. It's a 5-mile long bridge. And it's kind of, I've been underneath it in a boat and I've ridden across it in my car. So I want you to tell me the capital of this state, the state's name, and get your mom and dad to sign this bonus answer sheet. Your name needs to be on it too.
Where is Mr. Andrews? He's in the U.S. He's at a capital. Oh, which one will we learn about this week?
Let's all have a great week, all 2 days of it, and then enjoy your 3-day Thanksgiving vacation.